being one of the most visited monuments in the world with over 7 million visitors a year, the Eiffel Tower doesn't really need an introduction. It is no doubt one of the most significant landmarks mankind has ever built, located directly in the heart of Paris. But something that almost nobody knows is that the Eiffel Tower was actually supposed to be demolished after only 20 years. Luckily, this didn't happen, and in this video, we'll tell you why the demolition was cancelled and many other unknown secrets about Europe's most famous structure. In 1889, the city of Paris hosted the Exposition Universelle, a world's fair that was held to celebrate the 100th year since the beginning of the French Revolution. The exposition served as an avenue for countries all over the world to showcase their respective cultures, achievements, and technological capabilities. With the significance of this World's Fair and the event that it is commemorating, the French saw fit to create a landmark that would demonstrate their nation's technological prowess and serve as a centerpiece for the international event. So, 5 years before the event, one of the most influential and notable French engineers at the time took on the task of drafting up plans for the iconic tower that we know of today. Gustave Eiffel, the man behind the structure's name, is well known for his metalwork and creating many famous designs, not just in France, but also in other countries across the globe. Gustave and his Compagnie des Établissements Eiffel are credited for constructing many of France's infrastructures, such as the Garabie Viaduct in southern France and the dome of the Nice Observatory. He is also known for working on the metal framework of the Statue of Liberty, which has earned him the nickname the Magician of Iron. The Eiffel Tower's main design is usually attributed to French engineers Maurice Coquelin and Émile Nouguier, who both worked for Gustave's construction company. According to Eiffel himself, the tower's design was inspired by a wooden structure called the Lading Observatory, which was built for a World's Fair held in New York in 1853. Similar to the iconic Parisian Tower, the Lading Observatory also had a square base, 3 levels, and consisted of iconic trusses that supported the overall structure. Before the Eiffel Tower's construction, the Washington Monument in the United States held the record for the tallest man-made structure to have ever been built, with a height of 169 meters. At the time, many architects and structural engineers believed that constructing anything that would surpass a height of 200 meters would be a monumental task and would require decades of planning and preparation. Despite this enormous challenge and the limited construction capabilities of the time, Gustave and his team submitted their plans for a 300-meter wrought iron lattice tower, the likes of which the world has never seen before. A contract was signed in January 1887, granting Gustave Eiffel all commercial income from the tower for the next 20 years. Shortly after, construction on the landmark finally began at a location just over 100 meters southeast of the River Seine. The construction began with 4 concrete legs facing each of the cardinal directions that will serve as the foundations for the entire structure. Because of its proximity to the Seine, the north and west legs required a deeper foundation that reached a depth of as much as 20 meters. 5 months into the construction, the foundations were completed and work on the main iron structure began. Every single metal component that went into the tower's design had to be transported by horse-drawn carts from a factory almost 4 kilometers on the other side of the Seine. And because of its precise and intricate design, much of the labor that went into the construction was actually perfecting the curves and complex angles of the structure. Every single bolt and piece of metal had to be accounted for, and if even a single piece were to not fit, it had to be sent back to the factory for adjustment. In total, more than 18,000 individual pieces of wrought iron and 2.5 million rivets were used to construct the base structure. Just a year after construction started on the monument, the most crucial part of the project, the first level, was completed. 5 months after that, the second level was completed. Finally, by March 1889, the tower was just about completely built. The base structure's construction was finished at a record speed of just over 2 years, thanks in part to 300 on-site workers and the use of wooden scaffolds and steam cranes. Since the tower was going to be the centerpiece of the upcoming exposition, one major consideration for its design was the creation of lifts that would carry visitors between different levels of the structure. The creation of these lifts were a completely different challenge of their own, given the curve of the structure, making it impossible to run straight tracks inside the legs of the tower. Additionally, because of the technological limitations at the time, the lift going towards the uppermost floor had to be divided into two. Passengers would switch elevators midway between the second and third levels in order to reach the top. Construction finished on the 15th of March 1889, 2 months before the start of the exposition. When it was completed, the Eiffel Tower became the tallest man-made structure in the entire world, surpassing the previous record holder, the Washington Monument, by a remarkable 130 meters. It would continue to be the tallest building in the world for the next 40 years, until the completion of the Chrysler Building in New York City, with a height of 320 meters. In total, the entire project cost 7.8 million francs, or more than 80 million US dollars in today's figures, to construct. Despite the Eiffel Tower's initial success at the Exposition Universelle, with almost 2 million people coming to see the landmark in person over the course of the entire event, it was actually only planned to stand for 20 years. By the year 1909, the city of Paris would regain rights to the structure itself, along with the surrounding land. The tower was then to be torn down as stated in the original agreement for the exposition. However, the 300-meter monument soon proved to be quite useful for a whole lot more than what it was initially created for. By the time the 20-year deadline for the project's existence was nearing, it had become clear that the tower had become a valuable asset for radio telegraphy, communications, meteorology, astronomy, and so much more. Because of its status as the tallest man-made structure in the entire world, it became an excellent site for conducting meteorological and astronomical research. By the turn of the late 1900s, the tower was regularly used as a radio transmitter, with even a permanent underground radio center built near the South Pillar. Because of this, it was allowed by the French government to remain standing even after the 1909 deadline. The 1909 deadline wasn't the only thing that threatened the Eiffel Tower's existence. In fact, even before it was completed, many artists and architects were strongly against its construction. For one, they argued that no structure had ever been built that surpassed 200 meters in height, let alone 300. Many thought that Gustave's plan was too ambitious and impossible. Another criticism that some Parisians had for the project was that it would go against and threaten the aesthetic of the city. They believed that a giant iron tower in the middle of Paris would become an eyesore. Some prominent artists even called it names such as a truly tragic street lamp and belfry skeleton, among other things. Though the Eiffel Tower remains today as one of the most prominent and well-known structures in the entire world, there are still a couple of lesser-known secrets about it that not many people have heard of before. One such lesser-known fact about it is the 100 square meter secret apartment that is situated at the very top. Gustave Eiffel designed this apartment to be his own personal space for him to entertain notable guests and conduct scientific experiments. The apartment was accessible only through a small spiral staircase, and at the time, only some of the world's most notable scientists, personally invited by Gustave himself, had ever set foot inside. Because of its prime location, many people offered large sums of money for him to rent the space out, but he never accepted. Today, this apartment is now open to the public, complete with a recreation of how it would have looked back in the late 1800s. The Eiffel Tower continued to become a public communications tower over the course of the early 1900s, until the First and Second World Wars, where it had to be closed down. During the First World War, it was used as a signal jammer against German radio communications, severely hindering their long-range broadcast capabilities. By 1944, near the end of the German occupation of Paris during the Second World War, Hitler ordered one of his generals, Dietrich von Choltitz, to raise the tower along with the rest of the city to the ground. Disobeying direct orders from Hitler, he chose to surrender the city to the Allied forces. Because of his actions, Choltitz is often regarded as the savior of Paris. After the Second World War, the Eiffel Tower continued to serve as a radio and television station while being a popular tourist destination for millions of people. By 1964, it was officially declared as a historical monument by the French Ministry of Cultural Affairs. Starting in the year 1968, the main structure has continuously been painted by a specially blended color known as Eiffel Tower Brown in order to maintain not just its visual design, but also to prevent the iron from rusting. This special coat of paint actually comes in 3 shades that progressively get darker from top to bottom. This was made in order to ensure that the monument would perfectly complement the color of the Parisian sky. In 1989, a special lighting display was installed on the tower to commemorate its 100th anniversary. Over time, these same lights have become just as iconic as the landmark itself, with millions of pictures circulating online of the sights at night. But did you know that the Eiffel Tower's lights are actually protected by copyright? Although there has not been any legal precedent that disallows the average person to upload pictures of the special lights, the Eiffel Tower Operating Company claims that the lights themselves are a separate work of art that has its own copyright, and so it is therefore illegal to publish or share images of the lit structure for commercial purposes. Today, the Eiffel Tower has become one of, if not the most iconic monument in the entire world. An estimated 7 million people tour the site every year, making it the most visited paid monument worldwide. The interior layout of its 3 levels has also changed a lot ever since its construction in 1889. The first level is now home to 3 buildings that serve as theaters, shops, restaurants, and a tiny museum where visitors can learn about the landmark's history. There's also a glass floor along the center of the first level, where tourists can look directly down on the ground. The second level contains 2 observation decks and the Jules Verne restaurant. Finally, the 3rd floor contains Gustave Eiffel's secret apartment and the highest public observation deck in the European Union. Given the Eiffel Tower's age and the many events that it has already witnessed over the past century, one important question needs to be answered. How long will it be able to last? It can be hard to imagine the Parisian skyline without its iconic landmark. Being a certified historical monument and a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the tower itself is carefully maintained to ensure its longevity. The base structure is completely made of iron, which makes its corrosion the #1 point of maintenance. This corrosion happens when iron is exposed to water or the open air. Thankfully, a regular layer of paint can prevent such from happening, which is why the tower has continuously been repainted ever since it finished construction 130 years ago. Another phenomenon that could slowly destroy this historical landmark over time is the constant heating and cooling of the structure. The sun's heat causes exposed sections of the metal to expand ever so slightly over the day, and by nighttime, this expansion will have been reversed and the cycle continues. In fact, the Eiffel Tower actually expands and contracts by as much as 15 centimeters every day because of this. If left unattended, this constant expansion and contraction could weaken the supporting structures and eventually take the tower down completely. Although this would probably take thousands of years before it could actually happen, and during that time, plenty of maintenance work can be done to prevent it. What are your thoughts on the Eiffel Tower? Do you know any other interesting facts about it? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.